Welcome back, everybody. This week, we're going to have a conversation with Sam. I'm super pumped to kick this off with a one-word open that he's going to give us. Sam, give us your one-word open.
Oh, it's going to be energized. Energized, definitely.
I love it. That's exactly what we need just to start off our day. So with that said, can you take the next few minutes, Sam? Tell us about your business, how you started, even from the aha moment to the inception and to where you are today, the trajectory you've had and where you're heading. So that way the audience and I could be on the same page with you. Go ahead.
Awesome. Sounds good. So my name's Sam Kidd. I am the CEO here at LawView, which I co-founded back in 2015. So LawView is a SaaS product. So we sell our product to corporate legal teams. So these are the lawyers that actually sit inside large companies. LawView then helps these legal teams with their entire work management and the collaboration with the wider enterprise, helping with all sorts of things like contract management and document management and just the tracking of work, either internally or also with external law firms. So in some ways, you can really think of LawView as like a legal project management or sort of work management tool. I suppose it's, in some ways, it's a little bit of a segue into my founding story. So originally from New Zealand, but I grew up in Ireland, so you may hear my accent jump between the two. But ended up in a online project management company back when sort of SaaS was becoming a thing. So back in sort of 2007, and got to kind of go on that startup journey for close to 10 years. Sold out of that back to the other founders when I moved back to New Zealand. And during that time, got to deal with lawyers and realized that it's actually quite a painful process. I've been living in this world of tasks and milestones and transparency and collaboration, and dealing with lawyers was just the complete polar opposite. So I was like, there's got to be a better way of kind of doing this. And at that time, I got introduced to my now co-founder, Tim Boyne, who was corporate operations in some law firm. So working with the lawyers to engage with corporate clients, and realizing that there's a bit of a struggle there because a lot of legal tech was really on the law firm side. And so we started to look at this new cohort inside these companies. So started in New Zealand, started working with small corporate teams, so teams of 4 or 5, realized that the technology stack was just non-existent, which when you think this is back in sort of 2015, they were working with Outlook and Word, and these are large multinational companies. They didn't have any technology of their own. So we thought maybe this is just like a weird New Zealand way of working. So looked at what they're doing in the US and Australia, and it was exactly the same thing. And a lot of these sort of smaller teams. So started to really kind of build out the product. Worked really closely with kind of existing customers or sort of pilot customers, and then started to kind of push into these large multinationals throughout US, Australia, and now into the UK.
Very cool. Thanks for giving us the high-level overview. That's awesome. So with that said, can you tell us a recent win that you had in your business? So something that you consider a big W that you put on the board, so to speak, and you're proud of. And then when you're telling us through this real quickly, also tell us, what was your takeaway? What did you learn from this huge win that you put on the board?
Oh, there's a lot of sort of good wins that we've had lately. Probably one that sort of comes to mind was actually getting a lot of our team members on board. So like even a chief marketing officer who joined the company. So ex LinkedIn head of marketing there, moved across to New Zealand, and we were able to entice him enough to come join a small sort of tech company. Like for me, the team is everything. I think you can have, like, so many people have great ideas, and we have all great ideas every single day, but that ability to actually execute on the idea is what separates good from great. And so for me, it's been, how do we build up and surround ourselves with just top talent in the company to help us really kind of execute on the idea.
Sam, I really love what you said. The team is what separates good from great. And it is all about the team, right? End of the day, it's our highest cost in business is human capital, right? And it's the team that gets you across the finish line on deadlines, projects, and even acquisition of clients. So that was really awesome of you to say. It's touched, right in the same spot that we always talk about on this podcast. With that said, let's go over to failure. So I know we have a lot of wins, but failures is a part of business that we have to learn from and pivot. So tell us a recent failure that you experienced that you thought you were not going to be able to pull through, but you did somehow. And magically when you came out, what was your takeaway from this failure that you had?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's we've been, I suppose, lucky enough not to have any massive failures. Probably the biggest one that is in some ways linked to the first is with a large distributed team now. So we've gone from, we were 33 people at the start of 2020. We are 118 now. So just that kind of growth 1 year. So probably the biggest failure sits with me is on the communication piece, and actually that's just communicating with the wider team, especially as we're a completely distributed workforce now. Like even since the pandemic hit, a lot of people distributed even in their own cities, and I suppose as a leader you forget what people don't know, and so you think everyone's on the same page, and then you turn around and find that people are not executing on what you thought, or there's confusion in certain areas, and it's very easy to kind of start blaming other people and be like, should they not, why are we not moving faster? Especially when we've gone from 30 people to 100, we should be moving quicker. And what it's really come back to is just that clear, concise communication, making sure everyone's on the same page. So the biggest failure that I've had to date is, probably been from my side, which is just communicating that clearly to the company, to all the right stakeholders, making sure that everyone knows what it is that we need to achieve and the why. Like, why are we doing this? That strategic piece that you kind of keep close to yourself, or you talk about it a lot with your close peers. So a lot of the exec team, we're having that discussion back and forth, but to communicate that again to the wider business about why we're doing things. That's I still don't have that 100% right, to be honest, and sort of hold my hand up there. But that's something that we're constantly working on. But if you don't get that right, well then that will turn into a massive failure.
That was really great, because you're 100% accurate. Where you add headcount, you think you could grow and scale and get a huge lift, and you're like, why is this not happening? But it's all about communication, right? And then the why is important too. Yeah, the why, you have to express the why and drive that message as well, because if we don't have a purpose that's being defined or articulated, then the team can't really help you hit that the metrics. So cool. With that said, the pandemic it's impacted everybody in the world, unfortunately. But I would love to hear how you pivoted out of pandemic and just now you're looking back, you're like, oh, I got through it. So tell us about that.
Yes, so we just closed a funding round as the pandemic was about to hit. I was like, 2020 is going to be kind of a breakout year. Here we go, or 2019 when it hit, and then obviously a pandemic hit, and the whole world kind of grind to a halt. And so there was just this probably 2-3 months where there was no new deals closed, and I know what's going to happen here. So I always remember people saying that it's easy to be a good company when times are good, but are you able to be a good company when times are bad? And that again is what separates people that actually can operate, as opposed to just going along with everything that's kind of flowing. So thankfully, the pandemic has actually been an accelerant for us. So the market that we sell into has been incredibly, I suppose, tech adverse. They haven't really moved with the times. The fact that we're selling technology into large corporates, but into a sub function that hasn't really had any technology stack. And once the pandemic hit and everyone was kind of geographically dispersed, even their own cities, kind of forced their hand. And it also gave them budget to say, hey, as a legal team inside your company, we've got no tools to operate. We're not in the same office. We don't know who's doing what. How do we collaborate with the wider business? So it actually was a net positive for us. So out of something that's been globally quite painful, we've certainly benefited from that, and it's certainly helped teams to accelerate that buying process, and also just to them to think about the way that they kind of actually run that department. Which still today, every time I kind of go into a new company, it amazes me they don't have anything. It would be like a sales department having no sales force, which you would just never do now, or any sort of CRM. So it's still mind blowing that in sort of 2022 that we're dealing with companies that have this legal function with basically just Word and Outlook to help them sort of run their department.
That was really great. You actually answered my next two questions. So that was good, Sam. Let's talk about thought leadership. Tell us what your thoughts are on, what makes somebody a great thought leader from your point of view.
this has changed for me over a number of years. I think for me that the key thing is listening, which is probably stating what my kind of closing word was going to be. But the not feeling like you need to be the loudest voice in the room from a leadership perspective now. So I'm a lot more comfortable at actually sitting there and in meetings listening to what the rest of the team is doing. Like, you've spent a lot of money, as we talked about, on getting the right talent in. You're bringing people in that are there to execute, and it's allowing them to do that. So it's the holding back from jumping in all the time, listening to what's on the table, and then taking time to absorb that, and then work out kind of like strategically, how can I help remove blockers, other things that I can enable or help kind of with other conversations I'm having inside the business that will help move things forward. And the only way you can do that is actually just by being quiet and listening to what the room is, listening to what people are trying to achieve, and then working out the best way to strategically help with that.
Awesome. What about company culture? What's your point of view on company culture? Like, what are your thoughts on, hey, a company must have these 3 things in order to the result to be a great culture? So what are those top 3 things from your opinion?
The company culture thing for me was probably the most terrifying part about growing a company, especially as you start to spread outside of your own hometown, as to, like, my fear was that we're just going to create like almost like your culture Bible, and that it's just words and doesn't actually have meaning, and that you're just creating something that you think is what your company culture is. So we actually did an exercise as we were kind of, I think once we hit about sort of 25-ish people, where we got the whole company together and we did like a culture building piece to kind of help work out what that is, and got the rest of the company to kind of input into that, which was important because it had to be it had to be authentic. So the being authentic thing is the key part. And for me, it was actually almost it was quite an emotional journey to go on. It was like seeing your children grow up and them telling you how wonderful they like their job, what they think of the company, things they appreciate, how they feel as an individuals and how they're respected. So for me, that was super humbling to kind of go through that process. But the biggest part of that is to be authentic, and then it's the rituals and that in there. So when starting off, like at every all hands, the company culture piece always comes into play, and we celebrate that all the time. So that being authentic and celebrating that are probably the 2 key ones for me. Otherwise, you just don't live those values, and it feels forced. So yeah, it's certainly something that we spend a huge amount of time on. And as the company's grown out, it starts to kind of make a lot more sense. But in the early days, it can feel a little bit awkward. But yeah, we're sort of finally getting over that.
Yeah, culture could make a big difference, or
Huge.
any organization. It's something that's there, right? That you can't point to, you can't see it, but it's there. Kind of like oxygen. It's there, we can't point to it, but it's somewhere here, and we're breathing it, and that's how we stay alive. And I strongly believe in any company, the culture is just exactly that. To what you said, all those key things that you mentioned, and also it just brings everybody together, right? And it's not just empty words. I love what you said about that. So with that said, here we are towards the end. If you want to give out your social handles and your website address, that way anyone that's listening and wants to find out more information, they can find you on the web.
Yeah, so the website's lawview.com. Social handles on Twitter, Sam Kidd, which are not huge on Twitter, but LinkedIn, just LinkedIn Sam Kidd as well. Just so Kidd, Kidd.
Awesome. And what's your one-word close, Sam, that you want to sign off with? And when you tell us this one-word close, tell us why you're choosing this word.
I'm kind of jumped the gun because my one-word close was listen. That was where I was going with that one, and exactly as I said, just that ability to be comfortable with not being the loudest voice in the room, and listening to your team, that allows you to execute on just such a high level.
Yeah, that's a really good one, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation, and a lot of things you said are going to stick in my head for the rest of this week. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.